Hello, my name is Briana Parker, and today for my communication assignment, I am going to go over painting with watercolors. So first off, we're going to talk about materials and tools you'll need. So at first you see the apron or just clothes that you don't mind getting dirty in painting. Next we have the watercolor paper. It is designated watercolor paper and it is taped down. That way it doesn't get warped as it gets wet over time. Here is a colored pencil that I'll use to draw out my sketch for the painting. Upcoming we have watercolor paints. They don't need to be too expensive, anything will work just fine. Next is the palette that we'll use to put the paint in and to mix it with. And then we have the watercolor brushes. They don't need to be designated watercolor brushes, anything will work. And then next we have paper towel just to dry and clean our brushes, and then water to clean our brushes. We'll be talking about mixing our paint. Here you'll see me dry mixing my paint, and that's where I don't add any water as I mix it. I see that this gives the best results for getting the color match just right, and we'll add the water later as we actually paint. Next, I'm going to show you how to clean off your brush. First, you'll get rid of that excess paint, and then you'll just go about the process of dipping it in the water, brushing off that extra paint, and then going back until it gets cleared. I noticed that near the end of the process, if you just grab it, it gets better. Here you'll see a couple studies I did a while ago. And they really show the relationship between all the colors and how they overlap along one another. And here you can see like an ombre effect of going from really dark to really light, and then two colors together. Doing these studies will really help you understand the relationships between the colors. Here I made a color study, and that's where you just get an extra piece of paper, lay out all the colors for the color palette that you want to use in your painting, and then just do little test strips of the paint on the paper. That way you know how they look next to each other and how they actually dry. And as you'll see, I'm actually doing an ombre effect to see how my sky will look, the two colors that I chose for the sky. And you'll notice that I kind of blend the two on both my palette and on the paper to get the perfect effect. You'll also notice that I'm adding a little bit of water each time, and the amount of water that you add really adds to the transparency of the paint. So the more water you add to your paint, the more transparent it will be when you put it down on the paper. So here I am putting water down without any paint on the brush, and I'm putting the water onto sections of the paper that have portions of it drawn out. And the reason I'm doing it without any paint on just the water is because it makes for the paint to become out smoother. So you'll see a section of it that I did without putting water down first, and it comes out really patchy. Now I'm actually putting paint down on the paper on top of the wet portion of the paper, and you'll see that it comes out a lot smoother as I move on to the next clip here. You'll see on the right side with the water that was applied first, it's smooth, versus on the left side where it was put on dry paint, and you can see it's a little bit patchier there. So it's totally up to your preference. If you want your painting to be more expressive and have a lot more marks and process of the painting in it, then definitely go with dry brushing because it gives a lot more expression and goes for a lot more patchwork. Whereas if you want smooth, traditional watercolor type painting, then definitely put the water down first. You'll see that I did that with my entire skyline here to give it a very smooth transition from one color to the next. A good thing to keep in mind is that watercolor paints are additive. And what that means in painting terms is that you're not going to be able to go lighter with the paint once you put it down. So you want to go from your lightest portion and work into your darker colors. So you'll see that I already have my suns down, the dual suns there, and they're not going to get any lighter. They're the lightest part. And once I've let my paint dry, then I'll go back up over it with another layer of paint, and it makes it darker. And here we have the final results. I've taken off my tape. You can see that there's a little bit of blowout on the right where a bit of the watercolor paint got underneath it, but overall that is a 30-minute painting. As far as cleanup is concerned, because it is watercolor paint, you can just clean everything off in the sink with a bit of water, and if you needed, some Dawn dish soap. But besides that, cleanup is really easy. And there it is, how to paint with watercolors.